I said I would be moving on to the experiences after Kuwait. And nevertheless, what I also committed to do was to make public all of the efforts I made to cause justice to occur in the unfair dismissal of this NBTC Group assistant electrician who was on a project where Amec Foster Wheeler was the superintendent's representative. So what I have since discovered is some additional materials showing other organizations that I reached out to try to trigger a transformation in the safety practices at this manpower company in the midst of evidence that Amec Foster Wheeler was incapable or disinterested in bringing about this change. As stated before, this is motivated by what I've only discovered in the past month, that due to a lack of change in the safety practices at NBTC Group, last year, there was a building fire in an accommodation facility maintained by them where 49 men perished. So we can start there in terms of the introductory motivating materials for this effort of mine. So yes, I think this is decent motivation for this investigation, but there is the one that I keep coming back to as well. This woman who was involved and traumatized by the withdrawal of US forces from Afghanistan, who appeared in this podcast, Kabul Falling, and her testimony about the consequences, mental, emotional consequences of such a conflict resonated with me because of the experiences I'm relating to you.
This is what war does to people. Take your inner peace away, turn you to kind of a robot.
Good. And the next prompt, or permissioning really, for this activity of mine, speaking up, is somewhat provocatively from J.D. Vance and his, in the past month, speech before the Munich Security Conference, where he says this.
To believe in democracy is to understand that each of our citizens has wisdom and has a voice. And if we refuse to listen to that voice, even our most successful fights will secure very little. As Pope John Paul II, in my view, one of the most extraordinary champions of democracy on this continent or any other, once said, "Do not be afraid." We shouldn't be afraid of our people, even when they express views that disagree with their leadership.
Quite simply, J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, is inviting the population to fully embrace democracy, speak up, challenge the leadership, and simultaneously admonishing the leaders to accept those who speak up so that we can achieve something great. All right, so I have, as I've shown you guys in a few of these episodes, a plan for solutions and healing. It has expanded a bit as I've gone along, but just to reassure you that I do have some sort of a sequence of events to relate to you and that I am trying to step through them. So what have we done so far? By the way, I've just got a note here about self-destructive behavior. You know, when you go through experiences like this, it is a risk that the accumulation of trauma or an emotional fallout does lead to self-destructive behavior. And, you know, fundamentally, you can, as a result, choose not to speak up, bottle it up, and have it all come out indirectly. And some of the consequences of that can be quite unfortunate. Another approach is to speak up. Nevertheless, the choices people make in speaking up can also constitute self-destructive behavior, especially if it's done out of anger, done for revengeful purposes, and ultimately done in a way which loses sight of a solutions-based approach and with the goal of healing. So I've got that little note there for me to remind me that my focus is, yes, on speaking up, but doing it in a way which is solutions focused and causes healing. All right, we've talked about the animation of safety issues in North Kuwait. We've talked about my leveraging the sexual harassment event to cause a change in staff IDs so that people didn't have E to indicate they were from the east, or W indicating they might be from the west, so-called, on their ID cards hanging around their necks. So I've talked about that. I've talked about dehumanizing language. I've talked about having been dismissed, but what I will in this episode show you actually is the email. I'll also show you my resignation email. And some other things to talk about. The report to the British Safety Council that I made. I will also show you screenshots of all the ethics point report, ethics point receipts that triggered this global compliance officer to come down to Kuwait from London. I will talk about the ethics report that I also submitted to Wood after they were acquired by Amec Foster Wheeler, just to test if the cover-up continued. I'll talk about an email to the market regulator that I sent during the process of the UK government assessing whether it was fair for this merger between Amec Foster Wheeler and Wood to occur. I also contacted the National Crime Agency in the UK and got nowhere with that. I also contacted the UK Financial Conduct Authority. Didn't get too far with that, but some notes there as well. And then there was also an email prompted by Hindenburg researchers' fantastic takedown of Nicholas. There's a few things to go through here, all with the goal to conduct in public a thorough review of all steps taken in response to this injustice of this man, again, being unfairly dismissed for calling an ambulance when he and 4 others needed it, to go to hospital because they were being asphyxiated due to an H2S gas leak, and those above managing that worksite, Petrofac, Amec Foster and Kuwait Oil Company, not doing enough to cause justice for this man in the face of his unfair dismissal, which was accompanied by 7 years later, the same manpower company seeing, due to poor safety practices, 49 of its workers perish in a fire. That's why I am doing this, undertaking this thorough public account, to learn, but also to illustrate how useless it was to contact all of these supposed authorities. So, speaking of which, the British Safety Council. So what I found was that there was a certificate endorsing the safety practices of this organization shown from 2016, shown in 2017 on NBTC's website. So seeing that, I made a phone call to the British Safety Council. I told them of what had happened to one of the workers of this company. I told them that they were displaying a certificate from the British Safety Council on their website. And I related what I had done to investigate. And the man who answered the phone, I'll never forget, I made this call out the front of the Altamira Annex using an international call on Skype. You know, you can buy Skype minutes. Remember when people used to use Skype? So I made that call and he invited me to send it all in an email. So I dutifully did that. So you can see here, subject Nasser Al-Badr and Partner General Trading and Contracting Co. NBTC report to customer service at BritSafe.org. So this is was the contact email address for the British Safety Council. Dear Sir or Madam, please be advised that I wish to report Nasser Al Bada and Partner General Trading and Contracting Co., or NBTC, to you for a possible breach of your organization's membership requirements. Kindly review the attached email from a worker who appears to have been fired for following procedures, raising the alarm for, and then getting treatment for H2S gas poisoning. It is the attachment labeled NBTC British Safety Council report.pdf. The email at the bottom of the PDF was the report from the worker, this assistant electrician. Subsequent emails above that reveal my attempts to verify and follow up on the case with safety staff of my company. Be advised that I discovered their membership of your organization through this web page. This page contains a membership certificate with your organization, and I have attached it. I note that it is no longer valid. Perhaps they forgot to update their website. I tried calling them to clarify this matter just now without success on these phone numbers. Yeah, and just some notes about my difficulties there. So please also be advised that I have reviewed the Kuwait Oil Company Safety Records website, my HSSE, regarding the safety performance and auditing of this contractor. Relevant screenshots from the system and explanatory notes appear at the bottom of this email. Note that no incidents and only 2 near misses have ever been recorded for this contractor in the 3+ years of records within this system. It would appear that the assistant electrician may have been fired to protect their safety record. Adding to my suspicion is the fact that a mere 2 weeks after his sending his email, his civil ID number using the government civil ID checker no longer seems valid. Before continuing on with this email to the British Safety Council, here indeed are the 2 certificates that they have issued to NBTC. One valid till 30th of March 2016, another valid to 30th of March 2023. So the one on the left, valid to 2023, is currently displayed on their website. Here is the British Safety Council. They've shown it as 2022. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was obtained 2022, valid to March 2023. Nevertheless, it's shown right there presently on NBTC's website. When we know that last year there was this fire that I showed you, right? So it is quite the juxtaposition, let me tell you. So here they are. This is the one that I mentioned and that triggered my initial report to the British Safety Council on the right here, the one expiring March 2016. Continuing on then with reading out this report to the British Safety Council, which again, I sent in good faith, hoping that it would, or trusting that it would result in them investigating NBTC, causing them to improve their safety practices. I sent it in good faith. So I said that I reviewed to verify that this individual had been kicked out of Kuwait. I used the government civil ID checker to verify if in fact his civil ID and there had been cancelled, and to check if he no longer had the right to live in Kuwait. And as shown here in the response from the system, our records show that either you have not reviewed your ID card and the card's considered cancelled, or procedures for renewing your ID card are not yet complete. If you've already submitted your renewal documents, please try again in 10 days. So yeah, this appeared to verify his contending that he had been fired and kicked out of Kuwait. Continuing on with the email, perhaps the individual, the assistant electrician, has already departed Kuwait. I've not been able to contact him yet and only have his email address to go on. I have tried Facebook also without any luck today. Finally, please be advised that it has come to my attention that NBTC is owned or in some way associated with the CEO of the Kuwait Oil Company. You may understand that in Kuwait, this means this company may be able to operate in a more privileged manner than others. So the cursory additional research I've done since writing this to the British Safety Council says that actually the company was started by an Indian. So I definitely, there is hearsay that goes around the office, and I am perfectly happy to admit that I may have been guilty here of simply passing on hearsay about this particular aspect of this company. So I'm happy for that to be discounted. Nevertheless, I passed on what I knew at the time. All right, so, then I conduct a review of what I see for NBTC in the Kuwait Oil Company's safety system. So the first is safety observations conversations. There have been 475 of them. In a search of the system using the largest date range it would allow from the 1st of January 2012 to today, which was June the 29th, 2017, I determined there are 475 safety observations and conversations, or SOCs, reports going back to February the 17th, 2014. And then I've got a screenshot proving that. And you can see the count there, 475. And some examples. We continue on. This indicates that as far as the data stored by the system goes, NBTC has been recording safety-related matters since February 17th, 2014. Regarding near misses, there were 2. And here's the screenshot proving this. Only 2. Regarding incidents, this is the critical one. There were 0. Regarding workplace illnesses, curiously, over a multi-year period, 0 had been reported. Very healthy workforce for this manpower company. Regarding hazardous conditions reports, there were 6 reported. The system shows that there were 6 hazardous condition reports for projects covered by this contractor. Is my commentary. Here's another screenshot showing total number of reports. And then audits and inspections, 493. For audit/inspection events recorded in the same system for NBTC, these are the stats. And again, you can see it reports 493. And I conclude by saying this page shows there were 493 audit/inspection events recorded, the first being February 17th, 2014, the same date as the first ever SOC for the company mentioned above. And that concludes my report to the British Safety Council. It's fairly succinct, but the main thing is that there's a contrast between what was reported by the senior safety engineer that spent upwards of 4 hours during EID 2017 talking to me and verifying what, in some ways, what this assistant electrician told me. There is a contrast also between what is recorded in the KSC's safety database and indeed what this assistant electrician claims in his email, where a significant safety event occurred such that blood tests verified that he had inhaled poisonous gases and needed to go to hospital. And you would think, reading the safety records in the Kuwait Oil Company's database about this contractor, about events that this contractor participated in on Kuwait Oil Company projects, no such safety event had occurred. So I faithfully packaged all this up to the British Safety Council and fully expected, given that they come from the country that they come from, where they supposedly have high standards, that I would get a response and that there would be some sort of action. I got no response. Nothing whatsoever. In fact, the only thing I really saw in the ensuing years was that 2016 certificate from the British Safety Council was removed from NBTC's website. But funnily enough, there it is back again as a newer version, accompanying these deaths of 49 men in an accommodation building fire. I find it curious. I really do. It brings up all sorts of questions. What does it take, for example, to get one of these, membership certificates? What does NBTC Group have to do to prove that it is worthy of a British Safety Council member certificate? What do they have to do to have the right to display that on their website? How, in possession of one of those certificates, did NBTC find itself, nevertheless, locking a door to the roof terrace of this accommodation facility, despite saying in public they had monthly safety inspections of the building, nevertheless leaving this door locked such that men couldn't escape to safety when the building caught fire. I mean, what is the value, I have to ask, of these British Safety Council member certificates? All right, so that is one additional bit of reporting that I did, which doesn't seem to have been worthwhile. You may be wondering also about these attachments to this email from this assistant electrician, proving that he went to hospital. Well, I have redacted, from what I can tell, the pertinent details from these documents, and I'm happy to show them to you. This is the casualty sheet, and it also has stapled to it the blood test results. This is pretty hard to read, infamous doctor's handwriting, etc. This is the diagnosis sheet. And you can see here, with the assistance of ChatGPT, I can see here pulmonary inhalation of toxic gas shown in the diagnosis part of the diagnosis sheet. Yeah. All right, what's next? This is the test result. And as you might recall, in an earlier episode, I had the assistance of Google Gemini to understand the significance of these test results. Those who are experts in these matters, who are doctors who are watching this, feel free to read and criticize and clarify. I am all for understanding. I'm just presenting these to you, showing you that this is not a lie. This happened. And finally, this is the triage sheet. What else have we got? Up the top here, gas inhalation followed by vomiting. Yeah. Shortness of breath, SOB. This is what this guy turned up with. Okay. This was what was put on the triage sheet to determine how the hospital should respond to this man presenting at the emergency department. Good. So we've covered off that and any concerns you may have had about whether I have fabricated anything. Just to allay any concerns you might have had about that aspect of this reporting. All right. So yeah, what have we done? We have covered off the British Safety Council report, the certificates from them, and the medical test results. Another matter to put before you, or exchange to put before you, is this. So there was a safety officer, another one. So basically, there's a number of safety officers that I've discussed with you. So there was the one who, discovering that I had resigned due to safety concerns, forwarded the email to me from this assistant electrician, which set all of this off. There was another senior safety engineer who spent upwards of 4 hours during Eid, as I keep saying to you, to give me details on 6 extra safety incidents. And there was another safety officer at site in North Kuwait who I called one day to try to find out more about this gas inhalation case, but another one. So I'm just going to read this off to you. So this was from June the 28th, 2017, 9:50 a.m. We called the other senior safety officer Bob. Let's call this one Bill. Hi, Bill. These are my notes about a phone call we just had regarding the blow email from the assistant electrician. The time of the call was approximately 10 minutes, ending approximately 9:30 a.m., June 28th, 2017. My desk phone, 238-61951, was used to answer your call from, and I've put his phone number. We spoke about 2 safety incidents, one of which is described in detail below by the assistant electrician. You advised that regarding this gentleman, it's your understanding he has not returned to work for NBTC. Furthermore, you advised that it was viewed as being the responsibility of KOC to follow up, since the email was also sent to a client staff member, so client as in a Kuwait Oil Company staff member, and I put the name and his email address. You advised that in turn, This KSC staff member remarked that it was not his responsibility to challenge the dismissal of the assistant electrician from NBTC, as it was a matter for HR, so Kuwait Oil Company HR, given the man was contesting something to do with his employment status. Furthermore, you remarked that no signs of H2S gas poisoning were discovered amongst the other 4 individuals that he advised were with him. Note that he has attached a number of documents which he believes support his contention that he suffered H2S gas poisoning, and he remarks that the other men suffered as well, contrary to your view that they were found not to have been affected. So what's evident here, just breaking from reading out the email to him, is that the buck has been passed around between these gutless staff members from these supervisory organizations, and no one's willing to use their power to step in and cause justice for this man. Look at all these pathetic individuals earning the big bucks, especially the individual at the Kuwait Oil Company. All right, so back to reading up the email. Regarding the assistant electrician's remark below that, quote, "We're always discouraged to report incidents. If we report any small or big incident, then we are treated as against the company," end quote. You advise that this is incorrect in your view, as formal reports, including a reenactment of an unsafe incident, were submitted for 2 incidents in the past 3 weeks. Such conscientiousness is commendable. You advise that the reenactment was to determine the root causes of why a cabinet fell on a man's leg, causing it to break, according to this is another senior, the other safety engineer. If you are able to provide any further details about this man's present medical condition and working conditions, especially on the day immediately following the incident, I would be most grateful. My personal number, and I provided my phone number. Okay, so what can we see there? So this safety engineer behaved in a slippery way, because that quote from the assistant electrician is not about how Amec Foster Wheeler or the Kuwait Oil Company specifically respond to those speaking up from NBTC about safety incidents. No, that quote is about how NBTC itself responds to its employees speaking up. And yet this Amec Foster Wheeler safety engineer has responded to me as though the observation from the assistant electrician is leveled at the behavior of Amec Foster Wheeler. Yes, I will reiterate my acknowledgement from that email to him that it is good that Amec Foster Wheeler was conducting reenactments to understand root causes of safety incidents. It is good that he's able to respond with something positive there, but it's different subtly. He's not responding to the behavior of NBTC, and he should. It should be of interest to him as a safety engineer that a manpower company that is under the supervision of Amec Foster Wheeler is trying to silence its own staff. Another thing, so I specifically asked to provide any further details about this man's present medical and working conditions, especially on the day immediately following the incident. This is about a man whose leg broke after a cabinet fell on it. Why am I asking for what happened to him the day after the event? The reason is that a lost time incident is recorded when someone has to go home or go to hospital and cannot continue working. So there must be a record of a lost time incident if the individual, for example, does not come to work the next day. So I am asking him to provide me with evidence or to comment on what happened. He never got back to me, but I know from inquiries with a safety clerk in the Amec Foster Wheeler office in Block A when I walked to this individual's desk, that they said to me that this person did not come to work for several days after because, hello, his leg broke. And yet, this safety clerk told me that no lost time incident was recorded, as was the habit of the Kuwait Oil Company in its safety database. Okay, so that covers off some more commentary or attempts to investigate and document the generally unsatisfactory circumstance regarding safety at this workplace. I will put it that way. Okay, so then just to continue rounding out the picture for you about what I discovered really regarding safety standards in this workplace. So I ended up also sending a report summarizing all the things that I've been telling you to the National Crime Agency in the UK. And what I included there was an eighth sort of point or observation from my conversations with this senior safety engineer, which I didn't include in those emails that I showed you sending to him, confirming and summarizing what I had discussed with him. Nevertheless, it did make its way into my report to the National Crime Agency. So I'm going to read off the first paragraph here. I was informed by a construction engineer and safety engineer involved in managing the gathering center's construction in North Kuwait that 20 million lost time incident free man hours had been recorded. That's a difficult way of saying that there were 20 million man hours without a lost time incident claimed to have happened in North Kuwait asset projects. Continuing with the email, they said this is unheard of. They said this is unheard of for projects in other parts of the world where they have worked. They said it is so high because the KOC maintains invalid safety records and in the very least does not at all times encourage contractors to keep excellent safety records. Indeed, the senior safety engineer who spoke with me at length about his safety concerns during the first Eid this year said that he walked out of a meeting due to feeling sick when Kuwait Oil Company staff were discussing applying for a Guinness World Record for their safety statistics. Yes, it got that bad, that they believed their own bullshit to the degree that they thought they could get it past the Guinness Book of World Records for a records period of time without a lost time incident. There are some other reflections there which I won't continue. I just wanted to relate that additional one about this unbelievably high number of man hours without a lost time incident. I also will show you later on that I cite the same problem in my resignation email. Good, we are ticking off the boxes here. I've given you the email to the other safety officer. I've talked about the NCA or the National Crime Agency report. We've talked about the British Safety Council. I've shown you the receipts from the assistant electrician's hospital visit. I will show you the response from the Competition and Markets Authority email address. So I'll forward this. I'll share my screen now. So you can see a response from the Competition and Markets Authority, August the 17th, 2017. So this was, in the midst of the processes to acquire Amec Foster Wheeler that Wood PLC was going through. And I knew that the Competition and Markets Authority in the UK was reviewing whether it was a good thing for the market for these two significant engineering consultancies to merge. And I thought there was an opportunity that in their investigations of the circumstances around these two companies, what I had observed and been told about from these credible figures, that they may wish to check if it was a satisfactory circumstance to them that these sorts of things were happening with one of the two participants in this merger. And all you can see here, the only thing that I ever got back to them was, "Dear Mr. Waters, thank you for your further email of the 14th of August, 2017. This is to confirm that it has also been brought to the attention of our mergers team. I never heard anything back from these people. And needless to say, the merger still went ahead. And yeah, we can get to the stock price post-merger soon afterwards. Good. We really are ticking them all off now. I guess you're sort of waiting with bated breath to read the dismissal email and my resignation email. I'm thinking of the order. So yes, I think I will show you next my resignation email. Let me share my screen with you. So all I can say, so first up, you will see this is a photo of my screen. It's Outlook prior to my having hit send. I'm going to not acknowledge that from the outset, and that you, especially the skeptical ones amongst you, may think, oh, okay, so this was never sent. I get it. I get your suspicion, and it's fine if you haven't. But I'll tell you why I took a photo of my screen and didn't take a screenshot, right? And use an email or other Google Drive, whatever, to send that screenshot outside of the Amec Foster Wheeler system. No, I took a photo because I had a friend from studying Arabic at the American University of Kuwait who worked for the US Department of State. You can imagine such a friend would have been useful and interesting to have discussions with as I went through this whole process. Yeah. It's also a sign of the interesting connections and contacts you make when you are an expat in a place like Kuwait. Anyway, so the reason I took a photo of this resignation email before sending it was I wanted this individual to review it and pass comment, pass judgment, help me write it in as effective a way as possible. Look, I'm sorry, I don't have the actual email showing evidence that it was sent, but I'll also additionally say to you that as I went on investigating general safety matters, it wasn't only those individuals that you can see at the top, my line manager and others, the operations director, etc., a construction manager, that's and who's blacked out there actually, and the safety manager who got that email. No, once I started to realize how horrific the safety situation was in this office, I forwarded that email also to the human resources director for the entire company, and also John Lewis, the new CEO at the time. And within 40 minutes, I got responses from both the HR director for the entire company and that CEO saying, we will conduct an investigation, and if that shows that there is wrongdoing, there will be consequences. To summarize succinctly what particularly the CEO said to me. So yeah, this is what I have to say in response to the anticipated observations that this is not an image of an email that has been sent. All right, so let me read it out. Hi, Gary, Connor, Gavin, and Kwai. Due to the health and safety matters discussed during today's lunch with, amongst others, Gavin Cuthbert, it is apparent that this branch of the company and its client do not offer workers the best health and safety conditions. Remarks from two senior staff members at lunch today, along with remarks from yourself, Connor, in, I believe, the first town hall meeting you held, indicate that the number of hours without recorded lost time incidents is abnormally high. I'm just pausing the reading there to say how I said I would link the 20 million hours without a lost time incident and safety staff member suspicion about that to the resignation email. So here I am doing that. Indeed, it is apparent that senior staff within the company, as evidenced by an individual's remarks today, believe that health and safety violations are not always fully reported. Are not always reported or fully reported, if they do get reported at all. A lack of honesty about a matter which has led to multiple accidents and deaths is unacceptable. The case of the suicide by a man, due partly to the fact that he was unable to be confirmed as not being at site overnight, shows management failed in their duty of care. For this to not be recorded amongst the HSE incidents on that project is unacceptable, because it means this recording does not offer the motivation it otherwise might to ensure every staff member is cared for adequately. The correct response to this incident is to dramatically overhaul the systems in place used to account for the location of all staff members at all times. Furthermore, I'm reminded of the YouTube video at the start of last week's safety campaign, where the point was made that in-group members are more readily helped than out-group members. Given that the man who died was Indian and the individuals conducting the review of the case of his suicide were likely not, I am at least reminded here of one of the points of the video. There are simple steps to create an adequate safety culture, which I encourage management to take. 2 suggestions from my time on the Gladstone Liquid Natural Gas Upstream project in 2011, managed by Fleur and Santos, are: Number 1, a rotating roster of 5-minute presentations by each staff member, 1 per week, about a safety topic related to site or the office. Number 2, weekly presentations first thing Sunday morning by the company safety lead, showing statistics about health and safety incidents and a discussion of what they mean and how we can improve to always drive the incident trend down. These pulses will help to bring to life a safety culture. I hereby resign to make my point clear that this workplace, from the perspective of HSE culture, is presently unacceptable. So the middle sort of paragraph there started with a devastatingly ineptly worded, badly worded sentence. I'll read it again. The case of the suicide by a man, due partly to the fact that he was unable to be confirmed as not being at site overnight, shows management failed in their duty of care. So what I'm saying there is that the security of the work site for the gathering centre was so appallingly badly managed that on a weekend, so a Friday night, a worker was able to get in to this construction site and hang himself on it. It is a shocking indictment of the overall security measures and measures in place for ensuring duty of care towards all staff that this could ever have occurred. I honestly am being very subtle and polite and mild in my criticisms and observations there. There are all sorts of things, words, accusations that would have been warranted, but that was the approach that I took. And maybe the mildness of the language really shows how the fear that I struggled to confront, that we all struggled with. The fear, honestly, of being deported at the drop of a hat for saying anything. And it really even permeated my conduct to the degree that I wrote such a mildly worded resignation email. Okay, so something important to say here is that that email was sent the end of May, and then, or in May. And as has been mentioned before, the employment contract said I had to serve 3 months' notice. So this, I'm saying this to allay any concerns that all of this testimony is sour grapes over my having been dismissed in the last week of that 3 months notice period. That people may think, oh, this guy is angry that he was fired from his high-paying tax-free job in the Middle East, and he is taking revenge on everyone. Oh, no, I'm not, because I chose to resign. And that dismissal in the final week was a relief, because I still got paid. I still had a flight that they paid for to my next employment in Qatar out of Kuwait. I had another tax-free, high-paying job in the Middle East to go through, right? Straight afterwards, right? So there was no resentment at having been dismissed in that final week. I just wanted to say that to you. Yeah. Okay. So then there was this email finally in the last week dismissing me. I'll read that out to you next. So I said to you how I was ensconced in my work for this soil remediation project in the final week, trying to tie up loose ends for the manager on the project. And I, suddenly this Tuesday morning got this email from Sonam Fleming, the HR director in Kuwait, saying you're dismissed. And, I sort of had a cursory glance at it. I mean, like all of us, we don't necessarily read in depth everything that comes into our inbox immediately. I knew it must have been something controversial or worth paying attention to, though, given that it came from her and that I had been engaging in some, I believed, constructive dissent earlier in the week, as in the day before, by refusing to make that animation of the progress of works of North Kuwait projects. Anyway, nevertheless, I hadn't fully comprehended the content of this dismissal email by the time Connor O'Neill, the operations director, came to my desk to escort me out the door. So what I had to do was, when I got home, email Sonam asking her to forward the dismissal email to my personal address. So that's what you can see here. Dear Wilfred, as request, please see below the email that was sent to you earlier. Your travel plans and last day of employment remain unchanged. Regards, Sonam. And then this is the email sent 9:46 a.m. July 25th, 2017. High importance. CC to the operations director, Connor O'Neill. Dear Wilfred, the project has decided that at this point in time, you're not adding value to its delivery and your behavior is seen as disruptive and therefore it no longer requires your services. You're therefore required to leave the office with immediate effect and not return to the premises until your departure out of Kuwait. HR will be in contact with you tomorrow to discuss transport arrangements to the airport for your demob flight. Please hand over all company properties before you leave the office premises. We take this opportunity to thank you for your contribution to the project and wish you all the very best for the future. So, just to say that there is a telling sentence there. The project has decided that at this point in time, you're not adding value to its delivery. Which project? I'm asking that because, as related in earlier episodes, for the whole 4.5-year period I served Amec Foster Wheeler in Kuwait, I was on one single project called EF 1784, soil remediation of contaminated feature in South and East Kuwait fields, the Bergen oil field, not the North Kuwait asset and any of the construction projects for gathering centers and a pipeline and power lines, etc., up there. It was in the last month only, in the context of the entire management staff knowing that I'd submitted several ethics points reports with my name on them, causing the global compliance officer to fly down to Kuwait to investigate from London. It was in that context that I was suddenly given this task. A man amongst 30,000 staff globally across the world at Amec Foster Wheeler to do a map animation of progress of works on these very projects where I'd reported these safety concerns. And it was my refusal to serve that project which resulted in, I put it to you, this dismissal email. Not the one where I was busily still working that morning when I got the email on the original project that I'd been serving for 4.5 years, busily trying to tie up loose ends before I left. So, I mean, I'm not going to say anymore. I don't need to say anymore. There's another observation, though. So, what was it? That's right. It was the timing of the email that I showed you in the last episode. So The last episode had a screenshot or a photograph taken of an email about language and diversity and inclusion. And importantly, that was sent 2 days before that dismissal email, which was received on Tuesday, the 25th. So on Sunday, at the beginning of the week, remembering that in the Middle East, weeks begin on Sunday. On Sunday at 11 a.m. in the morning, I sent this email with observations about use of the word kids and boys as evidence of the form of dehumanization where animalistic dehumanization, where people are made out to be childlike. So that was how that week began. The following day, I refused to do that animation that I keep talking about. And the day after that, I was dismissed. So just to say that this was the pace of things and the level of confrontation that I was having to engage in, and ultimately the result from these pathetic people who couldn't take my doing what needed to be done to stand up to this generally horrific state of affairs. Something else, another loose end to tie up here. So I mentioned in the last episode that how I got it across the line for this HR manager in Kuwait to end the ridiculous practice of distinguishing between Easterners and Westerners in the staff IDs on ID cards hung around our necks. How I got it across the line to convince her to end that practice was to relate to her this sexual harassment by the project engineer of a planning engineer, the most senior figure on the project. Well, he also, this individual's name was Matt Harris, and his conduct here regarding use of the his dehumanization conduct regarding use of the words kids and boys was documented in this email at the beginning of the week where I was dismissed. So just to round out the picture of things being so out of control that the figure responsible for conduct, who is supposed to be the man or the individual who sets the standard for all staff, saw fit to use dehumanizing language towards the male Easterner staff, and additionally saw fit in front of all of us to sexually harass female Easterner staff. So I contrast that with receiving that pitiful dismissal email. I find it remarkable, actually, that Sonam Fleming, that HR manager, felt such a lack of fear regarding this conduct as to agree even to forward the dismissal email to my private email account. It's overall another sort of sign of the impunity that they assumed that they had. I was reminded of a final disclosure for you that I should show. I've made many references to ethics point reports, and that I put my name on all of them, and this resulted in James B. Walker, the Global Compliance Officer, flying down to from London to Kuwait. And I am going to share the evidence that I kept of having submitted these to you in case you doubt that it occurred. And that will conclude this episode. Okay. So I lumped all 6 safety incidents reported to me by the senior safety engineer during Eid of 2017 into one ethics point report. And you can see here the key. and that the screenshot is labeled as 6 safety incidents. Moving on to the next one. This is the ethics point report specifically about the assistant electrician and his unjust firing. Yes, I lumped all of the evidence I found into one ethics point report and dutifully sent it off. I mentioned in earlier episodes and this one, the forced labor of catering and security staff. So I made a specific ethics point report here about the catering staff member and his confiscated passport. And then I made another one about the G4S security staff here and here. Then there was a safety ethics point report. I can't recall exactly which one it was about, given that it wasn't the 6th that the senior safety engineer told me about. I think it might have been the guy who hung himself at site, which was declared as not being a workplace incident, for heaven's sake. And that's it for all of them. So, as I said to you, what I have set out to do in the previous episode and this one is to faithfully disclose every last effort I made to report to all of the authorities that I was told I should report to and others that I found on my own, such as the British Safety Council, trusting that what I put before them was sufficient for them to be prompted to undertake their own thorough investigation. And I put it to you that I was motivated in a valid fashion because it was a senior safety engineer, one step below Gary Fraser, responsible overall for safety of projects in the Kuwait office. A senior American safety engineer who came to me and spent 4 hours over 2 visits to my desk during Eid, the first Eid break of 2017, who disclosed all of these safety incidents to me. I believe that it is warranted for me to take the steps that I have taken regarding disclosure, public disclosure, in response to an individual like that spending all of this time with me. I believe I have a compelling case for this public disclosure to you. In accompanying that record of those reports and those discussions with my own observations from my own investigations at site and my own experience over that 4.5-year stretch working on this Kuwait Oil Company project in the Bergen oil field. And of course, it is a grave pity that I have had to do this, but the gravity of what I am doing in no way matches the unnecessary death by smoke and fume inhalation of those 49 men last year in an NBTC Group worker accommodation facility. And I again put it to you that had appropriate and thorough actions and investigations occurred in response to what I and others reported to the hierarchy at Amec Foster Wheeler and the Kuwait Oil Company, and the agencies that are supposed to control them and certify them, that 7 years later, after I had made those reports, the safety breaches that continued to occur at NBTC Group would not have happened. Accumulating as this worker accommodation fire, occasioning the unnecessary death of these 49 men. This is the appalling conclusion and the appalling lengths to which I have had to go. You saw everything that I tried to do. And then we are at the appalling result where I must continue these disclosures but now in a public forum, to show that despite everything that I tried to do, the attitude continued that these Easterner men were worthless. The straightforward effects of their dehumanization resulted in this fire. I don't know. I'm literally losing the ability to speak here. I have, I think, spoken. I should be able to say that I have spoken long enough. I won't speak anymore, but overall, I haven't spoken long enough. Whatever I tried to do wasn't enough. And everybody else, what they tried to do wasn't enough. But I think the point is that there were deliberate acts that meant that not enough would ever be done to prevent these deaths. What can I say? Additionally, but that the global compliance officer who lacked the courage to meet with me, James B. Walker, when he supposedly flew down to Kuwait from London to investigate, promising to talk with me. He never did. He then, I put it to you, engaged in a cover-up. And that cover-up continued, as evidenced by Ken Mary and Louise Armstrong's responses to me from within the Wood PLC compliance team. They communicated to me in writing that they were satisfied with James Walker's investigation and that they were comfortable in choosing not to conduct their own. So the final thing just to say here is that this individual, James B. Walker, now leads the ethics and compliance team for NEOM. This corrupt malinvestment of the Saudi Arabian population's sovereign wealth fund, their future fund. He leads the ethics and compliance team on this project. And as said at the end of the last episode, the latest Wall Street Journal reporting from Rory Jones and Elliot Brown indicates an appalling state of affairs regarding ethics and compliance on that project. So yes, I am committing to the public record here my contribution to that investigation of that individual. And I'm providing historical context for the current state of affairs regarding ethics and compliance on that malinvestment, that gross and graphic misuse of public funds, that is NEOM. This concludes my testimony from my time in Kuwait, and really, we do now have to move on to what happened in London.